The relationship between Voltaire and Rousseau was complex and marked by a mixture of admiration, collaboration, and eventual conflict. Young Rousseau initially looked up to Voltaire as a literary figure and philosopher. He sent a copy of his work, Discourse on the Arts and Sciences, to Voltaire seeking his opinion. The older writer, impressed by the work, responded positively, and this marked the beginning of their correspondence. They exchanged letters discussing literature, philosophy, and their shared commitment to Enlightenment ideals. They also shared critiques of social institutions, including organized religion and political authority. Both Voltaire and Rousseau contributed articles to Denis Diderot's Encyclopaedia, a monumental work of Enlightenment thought. Their collaboration on this project demonstrated their shared interest in advancing human knowledge and challenging traditional norms. Despite their initially friendly interactions, fundamental differences in their personalities, beliefs, and approaches gradually led to tension. Rousseau was more emotionally driven and focused on authenticity, while Voltaire was known for his wit, sarcasm, and rationalism. Rousseau was commissioned by an aggrieved Genevan pastor to write a rebuttal to Voltaire's essentially pessimistic Lisbon earthquake poem, and filled it with what seems to us such unworthy nonsense as the tragedy having been entirely the Lisboans' own fault. He wrote that if they had lived in the woods and fields, instead of being crammed inside tall, poorly built cities, they would not have died in the earthquake, so doom on them. Scholars today suggest that it is one of the earliest attempts at looking at disasters through the prism of social science and cultural vulnerability, rather than the purely moralistic arguments about blame. It was kind of a middle way and made Voltaire's blood boil. He never replied, but Rousseau would later go on to say that Candide was his answer to it. In time, Rousseau accused Voltaire of trying to maliciously block publication of his book, The New Eloise, which he didn't, but Rousseau was convinced and began publicly smearing him all the same. Hell hath no fury like an emo with a grudge. While they nevertheless had many visions in common, their differences culminated in a public dispute over the question of whether civilization or the state of nature is more conducive to human happiness. Rousseau, in his famous polemic, All men are born free but are everywhere in chains, argued for the virtues of the natural state, while Voltaire criticized Rousseau's romanticization of nature and expressed skepticism about the benefits of a return to a primitive state. Today's conservatives would argue that man is in fact not born free. We are actually completely helpless and dependent on the goodwill and cooperation of adults, and by extension, the culture we live in, to protect and help us to thrive until we become self-sufficient. Anyway, the flurry of correspondence eventually got rather nasty, and Rousseau felt so besieged by Voltaire's greater social influence that he gradually sulkingly withdrew from intellectual circles.